God damn it.
Greetings, fellow Viltrumites. Blue Dragon 5 here.
Hey, and Tiki, and welcome to the Invincible Season 2 recap podcast. I'm so sorry, Dragon. That was awful timing right there. That was fucking awful timing. I love it. Love it. How you doing tonight, Dragon?
I'm on the right side of the dirt.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, well, oh god, that flustered me. I'm not gonna lie, that flustered me, man.
All right, focus up, focus.
Jesus Christ, what bad timing. Literally right when I'm going live.
All right, we're
Right
here to
when I'm
talk
going live,
about.
man.
We're here to
All right, why
talk
don't you
about.
start us off, Dragon? Why don't you start us off? Wait, how do you feel about this episode? God, that flustered me.
Yeah, so season 2 of Invincible. I think we're off to a great start. Of course, I adore this show. I love the first season of it. We had the little Adam Eve special, which was also really good, and I think it was kind of a little sign of things to come. Like Robert Kirkman's got a plan, kids, and seemingly a better plan than they have with The Walking Dead. Feels like The Walking Dead, from what I understand, is pretty much like I never thought it would go this far. I guess we're just gonna see, we're just gonna go until we really run out of ideas.
Yeah, The Walking Dead, I feel like they literally squeezed a good 100 issues out of that concept, and then around issue number 100, well, to tie it into the Invincible thing, they killed off the Stephen Young character Dragon, and that's kind of where things went downhill for the comics, from what I know. But yeah, this and that's also kind of like the tipping point for the show as well, ironically enough. But Dragon, I got to admit, with this season 2, episode 1, I did watch the Adam Eve short too. I watched basically that and this kind of like in conjunction with each other. This is a good episode for sure, but I do think that with this show, I kind of feel like this episode is, for me personally, it's almost a victim of the show's own kind of like they have raised the stakes so many times, including, and I realize that this is like the first episode of season 2. But Dragon, essentially, like I feel like I kind of duped myself here because I was walking into this like, God damn it, Dragon. Essentially, I was hoping for another ending that kickstarted the season in the same way that season 1, episode 1 did. Like, and I don't know why I had that expectation for myself. What we have is certainly good. Sterling K. Brown certainly looks like he's going to be a really good kind of big bad for the season. I don't know, Dragon. Maybe it's the fact that I'm a little bit sick of the multiverse thing at this point, so that didn't really land for me as much as it could have. I like this episode for sure, but ultimately for me, it kind of felt like, okay, like we're back in the groove, we're setting things up. It didn't. There was no real like cosmic shift like this show usually likes to throw at you. So because of that, I'm kind of like in a good but not great kind of mindset for this episode in particular. But, obviously with this show, we're going to be building stuff, so we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, so with Invincible, I have the thing here, kind of like I had with the first Deadpool movie, where I have read through all of Invincible, but I did it once and I spaced it out, given knowing that we were going to have the huge gaps between seasons and everything. So I basically, in the recesses of my mind, I know how the story goes, but I've tailored it so I'll be surprised when the show comes. So I'm never going to go back to the comic. I'm going to see it, experience it again through the show. Which so far, I mean, just going off the first season, I've loved how we've readapted things. And I mean, there are some familiar faces, and this, like the Sterling K. Brown character. He has a very memorable moment or two from the Invincible comic. I gotta be honest. I was wondering going into this season. Honestly, I was just kind of thinking about it, just because it's been done so many other places. I was just wondering, I wonder if Invincible ever got into the multiverse. And I gotta be honest, and because of the way like I told you, I I don't recall if we ever tackled the multiverse in the comic. I don't know if that's an invention for the show or if that's from the comic or not. The bad guy, is from the comic. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't know if his whole shtick was multiverse or not, or like portaling. But yeah, it's Well, I know we could do the
The
portal
bad
thing.
guy is very much like Kang mixed with America Chavez, which is like a trippy combination.
Well, yeah, we'll get there with him. But yeah, that's the thing. It was I know he had a portal gimmick. I don't know if he could open portals in the multiverse. Though. That's the thing that's
Okay.
throwing me because I know there's like this moment once in where he basically kind of like trapped Invincible in a way where he had to. It took him a really long time to get home.
Hmm.
Kind of like what we did with Nolan in the first season, where On Demand he's like fighting the aliens, and he goes to their dimension. He basically conquers the planet. Unbeknownst to our main guys, he basically just forces them to invent a way to send them home.
Sure, sure.
Anyway, but yeah, so I mean, this season it's the transition. This episode's the transition episode. We're
Like I
losing.
assume this season in general, we're just kind of have to live with the fact that we're not getting a lot of J.K. Simmons.
Well, I mean, we got him up front here in a really surprising way, and
We
you're right
did,
though.
we did. We'll talk through that,
It
but
feels like we're front loading him, knowing because that's the thing, T. The way the story goes, and just again from the little that I remember from the comic, and just in general, as you can probably get from this episode, even we got a build. We ended so hugely. Some of the best gripping moments of storytelling from the end from last season was the last episode in which we had the "What will you have in 500 years" moment.
dude,
You know,
I mean, just seeing that moment again in the previously
mhm.
on, it just kind of like solidified how powerful that moment
Because I
was.
mean, that is the crux of the entire story. That moment,
Uh
that is
huh.
like the biggest moment in the entirety of this character. And that's the thing about Invincible. Invincible does have an ending. Like they're building to a very specific full circle moment and everything. So it's very that's a very strong moment. The fact that he leaves the planet, like we shouldn't see that guy for a while. We got to build
For
like
sure, for sure.
plus like how the heck do you come back? And it'd be really off putting. If like and he's back after episode one. You
Hey,
know,
Mark, I had a quick weekend to figure things out. I'm back now.
exactly. So we dramatically. I mean, honestly, T, if I'm a betting man, we're probably gonna like glimpse on the man as a guess. Mine, I have no idea how they're actually gonna broach this. I would assume he'll be like like the post credit tease at the end of episode 4 for our first half of this season. Then he'll probably be back when we come back in 2024. That's probably how they're gonna do that. Otherwise, I mean, if they really want to be ambitious, he comes back in the last episode of the season.
It also wouldn't surprise me if they sprinkled in like just some brief flashback stuff with him too.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I'm saying. We might keep him alive that way, but
Uh
we won't
huh.
really, like bring him back until like points like that, like kind of a post, like a mid season or like just end season kind of goal there.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, that's the thing. So we're this specific episode is all about grief and transitioning and the aftermath. And it basically was preparing us for the huge status quo shifts of this season. Like Mark's becoming a team player. He's with with Cecil and company. He's joining the team, but there's going to be some. It very much feels like we're tackling the evil Superman paranoia story that we've seen played out and done to death again and again and again, but in a really unique way. Though it seems like we're actually going to give it like time to breathe and like some act, but we're not going to just do the same old thing of like, everyone's instantly against them. Where it's like, no, we spent the whole season of television showing it. Yeah, just some blind ignorance. So he's the super guy. We're gonna trust him.
I
Could
mean, in
steer us.
Cecil's case, it's like he's looking out for him, just like he doesn't want him on the field specifically because of that potential, which is a really interesting
That's
kind
what I'm
of
saying.
push
We
and pull there.
so many times we've done it without the shades of gray, and now we're seeing some really good shades of gray, and we've built up time, and I think we're actually gonna nail it, Tiki. I think we're actually gonna finally do the whole evil Superman paranoia thing right in a big way.
Well, let's just jump into it then, because we start things out with that alternate dimension flash forward, which, for my money, Dragon is probably the closest thing in this episode to like an end of episode 1 from last season, where it's like just a cosmic shift.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it is a multiverse, but it is like, without the context of it being a multiverse, it is a
But Tiki,
pretty.
when you watched it for the first time, it kept you guessing, though,
Oh
didn't it?
yeah, absolutely. What really kept me guessing, Dragon, was the fact that Invincible's tone is very much like it is the tone that Mark would use if he would agree to something like this. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
like he's convincing himself. He's been gaslighted
Right,
by his
right. Where
father, and he's
he's
buying
like
into it.
trying to convince himself as much as he's trying to convince the people that he's like talking down to on that video loop.
Yeah, which is really creepy too. Just like the fact that we've taken our hero, or because I love that Mark Grayson character, man. I'm rooting for this kid ever since episode one of that first season. So like seeing him take such a dark turn is like, oh no, this is this is so, oh, it's so twisted.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, it keeps you guessing because initially I'm thinking, okay, it's a training exercise with the immortal who we figured was going to come back because they were piecing them together anyway, and his whole shtick is coming back to life. Then you're thinking, okay, probably like a little nightmare coda to open the episode on, but then it keeps going. It's like, oh no. So then I'm thinking, I guess it's like an alternate reality, right? That's the only thing that makes sense. This can't possibly, or like a simulation or something.
Yeah, so it is with that in mind, I do think it's a compelling setup for a villain because we very much have a situation here where Invincible has essentially created his arch nemesis, which is compelling in its own right. You know, the fact that like Invincible is on some level like responsible for the transformation of the villain, and we'll get into that transformation at
Yeah, I
the end.
threw a bagel at him.
It is some pretty horrific body horror. But we also have the added component that like essentially this guy's going after Hitler, you know what I mean? Like from his universe, you know?
Yeah, but that's the really interesting thing. So with the Tiki, I absolutely hear the multiverse kind of concern. I do, and I have it myself. But with this, I really appreciate that. So far, it's only one episode, so we can't really fully, kind of really ascertain how what we're doing yet. But let's just say the way they presented this episode, it seems like we finally are just doing the multiverse the way you need to do the multiverse, like the classic way, like we do in DC comics way back in the day, or the DC, the animated stuff. For point, any way you want to slice it, the way DC had the multiverse is pretty much the way the multiverse should be done. In that, okay, every decision you make creates a multiverse, and it's infinite. And just point being, anything you can think of, there's a multiverse that would support what happens. So it's very odd infinitum. There's no rules. It's just that's like the only rules. Is like the creation can be anything. And it's just
Uh-huh.
going to go on forever. Therefore, like you can pull from infinite amounts of multiverses. Now, every other multiverse that we've gotten so far keeps convoluting this simple idea. Not this show, but every other time. It's like Loki. It's like, okay, it's building off the end game stuff, and it's like, you create a branch timeline. Yet Spider Verse, we now have canon events, which it used to be such a simple idea. Now, well, there's like these six things that always have to happen. Apparently, if we break them, the whole universe destabilizes. It's like we keep complicating it. I'm so tired of complicating it. This does not complicate it. This is guy
I mean,
portals.
and on the other end of the spectrum, I kind of feel like there's been some multiverse stories where it's basically just like ooh, like I'm kind of looking at Multiverse of Madness a little bit, Dragon, where it's like, ooh, there's some sort of cheap thing that's changed about the universe, like where it's like it's unsatisfying. You know what I mean?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like the fun of the multiverse that we're doing here is that like you could customize your perfect multiverse if you actually knew like how many were out there. Like with what Angstrom Levy promises the Muller twins. Essentially, I'll give you your own universe, your own dimension. Like we don't want superheroes, and we want them to look at us like gods, and we want good food. Those are the three things I want. Sure, we'll customize that order for you. Yeah, sure.
Uh-huh.
So I like that's a simple depiction of like the multiverse idea, which we've been sorely lacking
Now, I
lately.
do think that the mistake that this show would make, Dragon, is if in the next episodes we have like every episode goes into a different multiverse where there's like a slightly different outcome. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
But essentially, what I think you're getting at, Dragon, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that you're appreciating the fact that it's like we basically have like a 1-to-1. We have like, okay, this is where things could go wrong, and this is what we want to prevent, and that's kind of like the straight line that we're drawing.
Essentially, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh huh.
I mean, it's that, and just like it works really simply. Guy creates a portal to a multiverse, and we don't need rules for how the multiverse works. It's just
Sure,
there.
sure.
That's essentially what. But yeah, So, but yeah, so the main universe that we open on again is what if Invincible joined Omni-Man and they took over the Earth together, and we have this chilling scene of them, but very much harkens to like how we ratchet up the violence and the tension of like the end of season one, where it's like, like we have Omni-Man killing robots, saying like you should have died at birth, and just like kills like the Quado version of Robot's real body.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. So like, we're given like lines like, "Hey, you destroyed yourselves by fighting back."
Right, right.
Now, the most chilling for me, like the gobsmacking moment of episode one for me, was what happened to poor alternate universe Adam Eve.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I
That
mean,
is the most
especially
twist.
especially given the fact that we have like an hour-long special
Mm-hmm.
devoted to her backstory, which
Yeah,
is like very compelling and tragic and pathos filled in its own right.
exactly. I mean, seriously, how great was that specialty? We never really
Oh, it
talked
was
about it,
damn good. It was damn good. I kind of
right?
felt bad that I hadn't gotten to it until this point.
I kept telling you.
I know.
But yeah, so
The
he
whole Stephen Root, right?
oh yeah, he is wonderful. They're pretty much playing Doc Brown if you look at him.
Pretty much, yeah. At first, when I saw the design, I thought maybe he had some sort of relation to Cecil, but I guess not.
All right, so well, no, Cecil Tiki.
Is it Cecil?
No,
Okay.
Cecil Sideshow Bob's brother from The
Oh
Simpsons.
my God, Dragon, points for you for remembering that.
Of course, it's Frasier adjacent Tiki. Of course, I know that.
Oh my God, Dragon, we should cover that specific episode. I know, like I know that we keep bringing the episodes on our Rolodex, but that specific episode, given the Frasier of it all, would be a really fun one to
It
cover.
does it does have David Hyde Pierce in it.
That's what I'm saying.
He is kind of our spirit animal of the channel. Anyway, but yeah, so he paralyzes Eve. I'd never hurt you. So he basically he snaps her neck, and like initially on Man's like, oh, I'm sorry, I know that wasn't easy. I love that in his twisted logic, he's being a very caring father, and they're bonding, and they're like as they're wiping out all these people, it's like, oh man, I'm so hungry. So like, let's do this and let's grab a bite to eat, son. It's just.
Right,
But then
right.
anyway, so like he's offering some condolences. They're like, "Oh no, she's alive. Oh, that's what you're doing to those protesters. I was wondering what that was all
So the
about."
fact that they're still alive but paralyzed, Dragon, that to me is like very much leading into fate worse than death
What the
status.
creepiest part is not just that she's paralyzed and we see like the tear running down her face. Oh
Uh,
no, it's the fact that yeah, I got a whole place set up to care for and everything. So in his twisted way, he
oh
knows
my
good.
God, right? Like all visitors sometimes.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I got a place set up for her and everything. Like we're like paralyze her and I'll put her in a care facility. And
Which that is very much fate worse than death.
Now,
Death
presumably, now this is a guess, mind you. Well, that's the thing. It's an Elseworlds thing, so it's kind of unclear like how far maybe their relationship progressed in this world. But he did like her, and he was friends with her. But perhaps the relationship did bloom. With things. I mean, you don't know what other choices might have gone differently in this world. But let's just say, safe, smart money, given how the Invincible story goes, that he is going to end up with Adam Eve. So yeah, he likes her, so it makes it like, even more twisted.
Mhm.
All right. So yeah. Okay. So back to reality. Back to our mainline reality. After we kind of have Angstrom. I keep wanting. Angstrom keeps throwing me off with his name because I keep thinking Kirk Langstrom from Batman the
Oh, I
Animated
know, I
Series.
know. I'm doing the same thing.
Anyway, so plus it doesn't help that his last name starts with an L, so there's like a transposing sort of thing, like Angstrom Levy.
Oh God.
So anyway, so if he portals out of there, which that was like the great tee off, like, oh, okay, it's a multiverse for sure. Okay, it's not like a
Uh-huh.
simulation, right? It'd be a really messed up simulation. Okay, so we have something I really like. This to me is kind of like a take note Zack Snyder kind of moment here, where we have Invincible saving people while he's sad, but he's still saving people. And it's not just like, Superman, crack a smile. You're saving all these Day of the Dead people. Like, come on, man. But seriously, so Mark, he's got a
That
lot
was
of.
a really great montage, I thought. And also,
Mhm.
Dragon, I could be wrong about this. I know that there has been instances where Radiohead songs have been used before, but I think Radiohead is one of those bands where it's like they won't just sign away their music for anything. It's like you really have to like like pitch them every time that you use one of their songs. So Karma Police being used here was just perfect. I feel like it really elevated the scene a lot, and the lyrics I think really captured Mark's emotions in the moment.
See, I really like to think, this is me just being optimistic. I really like to think if any bands ever needed to be swayed over for the music choices in this series, it would be a very simple thing of like Kirkman arrives. Kirkman arrives and he sits them down. He basically tells them the story of Invincible, and they're like moved to tears. Like, of course you can use our song. Yes, yes. This poor. What did his father do? He held him up to a moving train. Oh my god. Yes, use the song, please.
Well, Tom York is a very emotional guy, so.
No, seriously, it's a great montage. He's Mark's dealing with a lot of guilt over all the people who died in the
I love the
Chicago.
scene where we see the perspective of inside the ambulance.
I know, right? That's my favorite part
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Because I love. Here's the thing. I love. You know me. I love when superheroes save people, which we do a
Mhm.
lot of Invincible, like we should. And just this moment of like, it's not it's not him. He's not throwing a single punch to a bad guy here, really. In this, like he's
No, he's
spoiling the.
really not. And essentially, he is doing, kind of to harken back to the Snyder thing, he's basically doing what people complain that Snyder Superman should have been doing more of, which is, saving people and really
Yeah,
getting in like when Superman fucking like randomly flies away after the Granny's tea incident, that's not what we want from a Superman.
yeah. It's like, hey, Superman, who did you save in that BVS movie? Well, I saved my girlfriend.
Oh, God.
I saved some lady from this Day of the Dead festival, and I saved my mom. Okay, well, kudos on the Day of the Dead lady, but was there anyone else? I saved Metropolis by dying. Well, Superman, I don't really think that counts.
Oh, God.
I mean that's cool and all, but it's just kind of like it's more all encompassing. But you actually like what about the other? I saved that pilot. Well, bus full of kids. Well, then you get kind of chastised by your weird father. But anyway, we're gonna move on.
Oh,
So
oh my God, dude. Maybe you
anyway,
maybe you should have let him die.
so we can't really call that one a victory, buddy. But we're gonna keep trying. Anyway, but yeah. So I was just
I
saying the
would
ambulance thing.
literally rather die than expose your secret, Clark.
Anyway,
All right.
okay, seriously, the focus back on this.
Oh,
I with the ambulance thing, it also does bear in mind because remember he sees like a bank, like a supervillain kind of bank robbery, and he's tempted to. But I like my read on that scene is that he's kind of afraid to throw. Right now, he's kind of afraid to go on the offensive after the a little
that
PTSD with
was
his father.
absolutely my read on the scene too. It's like he's basically my read on the scene is that he is doing what he can while avoiding actual conflict.
And a part of him, I'm thinking, which again, this is going to be a huge crux of the season with the Cecil thing, which we'll address Richard Victim's comments about momentarily. But it said the big running through line this season, most likely, as I know it was a thing in the comics, but I don't know. Like, I think we're just going to sprint. We're probably going to, if we're smart, like it seems like we are here, and we started in this episode, where it's probably going to be a through line for a season or two that Cecil's going to have some on the man PTSD in terms of like I really got to second guess my unequivocal trust and friendship in these super people after what happened with that guy, and I
So
think.
that's a good lead in. Richard Victim's got a comment here.
Mhm.
Says, does Cecil actually trust Invincible, or does he say does he have some things he's not saying? Well, to be fair, Cecil is a character that always has things up his sleeve.
So that is a very interesting point.
I think that Cecil, it's not so much about trusting or not trusting Mark. I honestly think that he's just being protective of Mark. And like it's not that he doesn't trust Mark, but it's just that he knows that there is potential within him if he is pushed too far. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So a couple things to break down with all that. Noel, I think on some level, Mark, the reason he's not trying to get into altercations right now is that he himself deep down sees the potential of becoming his father, which I think he's a little scared about. And
Hmm.
Cecil's dealing with all of that right now. Like we have that great scene in like the diner where they meet each other, and I think the way my read on Cecil's dynamic with Mark at this point is that he does like the kid, and he does to some degree respect him, because remember, like, the kid saved the world by standing up to his father, and he could have sided against him, and he didn't. And also he took the beating of a lifetime, and
Sure.
by some miracle he convinced them not to wipe out man, because Mark lost that fight, kids. But I mean, ultimately he won. He won emotionally, thank goodness. Morally he won, but physically he was beaten to a literal pulp. Which Invincible gets that happens to him a lot. It's kind of like a Spider-Man thing. He's going to get beaten down a little bit there, but anyway, that's the thing. I think Cecil does like Mark, and he is rooting for him, and he is trying, like you said, he's trying to bring out the potential. He's trying to right the ship of what happened with Nolan, but he's trying to take his time with it. And I think the reason he's taking his time with it is he wants contingencies to make sure if he ever does, we're going to be able to stop him, like before a travesty that what happened with Omni-Man happens again. We don't want another Chicago happening. So I
Uh-huh.
think Cecil is taking his time. One, he's probably already has, like, he already brought the Immortal back, so that's already a contingency he has right now. But I think he's trying to build contingencies to contain the situation. He's keeping him, as he says, on a very short leash. The only way that kid goes out is on a very short leash, and I think that's right now that's his attitude towards things here. Of like, it's also a thing of like, he really does need him, because the world. Omni Man was very invaluable with all the things that he could do, but he never played by the rules, which is always the hot dog and thing that Cecil never liked, which then turned very dark come the finale of season one.
Sure, sure.
So I think he needs the muscle. He doesn't like that he needs the muscle, and he knows throwing the kid, like, this is like a month after everything happened, so this is rushing things for sure. Like, the kid's been taking a month, and he's having trouble processing the grief already. Because who else has the life experience to guide him through this? Let's be honest. I mean,
Ugh.
possibly the Immortal, but the Immortal's ticked off about getting his head chopped off.
No, I'm really looking forward to the potential like dynamics between the Immortal and the other team members, because I mean there's the Immortal is just a really interesting character to bring into this, especially after everything he went through in season one. So
Two things about the Immortal I always love bringing up. One, Ross Marquardt does the voice. He was James Cameron in that Blockbuster podcast.
oh okay.
Also, the Red Skull from the recasted Red Skull in the Infinity Saga. But the other thing is that, again, I believe it's in the comic, and we hint at it in the animated when we bring the Immortal back when his life's flashing before his eyes. He was Abraham Lincoln.
Oh God, right?
I don't
I
know if
do
you remember
forget
that.
about
Yeah,
that.
that's the thing. Technically, because he's had so many lives, he was Lincoln. When he got shot in the head, he had to come back again. But it's Lincoln.
Hmm.
It's awesome. Okay, let's see. So, the poor Grayson family. I mean, Debbie. Oh, my heart goes out to poor Debbie Grayson.
Yeah, it's like she's like clearly probably the most sympathetic character in the whole show. I'm not gonna lie, Dragon. From a narrative level, I do worry that she might get a little bit lost in the shuffle here, and I worry about it just because I made the joke last season, but like literally the marital drama between the main character's parents was the most compelling part of season one, and I say that like unironically. So
Yeah,
with Omni Man kind of like out of the picture, she's still a compelling character, but is she going to be like a real standout in the same way that she was in season one? You know what I mean?
Tiki. That's a very good point, because I know she comes back she has a very important scene. But you're right, though. Leading up to that, I don't really know what we do with her that's going to keep her interesting and on the board at this juncture. But I'm hoping they have something up their sleeve, because I mean, this episode. I
I'm
keep saying
definitely
this.
a little bit intrigued with her dynamic with Olga. I hope they're
Mhm.
maybe building something with that potentially.
Olga did have that card she was trying to give her, and I mean, it
Uh
didn't
huh.
look. It
Right,
seems to be
right.
just a
Yeah.
business card, but it looked very high tech. I
I
don't
was
know.
guessing that was like some sort of like power or something. I don't know.
Initially, I gotta be honest. Initially, I thought it was a card. Then on the rewatch, I thought, is it technology? Is it a drug? Maybe
Uh huh.
because the
For me, I kind of read it as some sort of like maybe like Iron Man tech or something like that.
Yeah, it seemed to be. It seemed like something. 'Cause it had like it didn't look like an ordinary business card. It looked like it was had like a little some circuitry on it or something, and it could have been could be technology or it sounds like you. She's saying you have to get yourself right before you get your son right. So it's either saying get therapy or maybe use this like maybe therapist in a card
Oh,
like a projection, like a hologram of therapist or something. Or again, I don't know if it's like maybe like height, like it's like super. It's kind of like a chemically engineered Prozac or something. I don't know.
oh God.
Like some sort of like kind of neck. I keep wanting to I keep wanting to cite the boys with like Compound V or something, but I can't. It's really I can't want to cross those streams right now.
Uh-huh.
Uh, anyway, but uh, but yeah. So that's the thing, Debbie. We gotta. We'll see. This episode does give me hope in that we should talk about the Amber of it all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she's kind of like the infamous problem of the first season.
It
I don't think she did anything that was like outwardly grating this time around. Like it does seem like she's a little bit more, like for example when Mark comes back with the black eye and everything, it's not like she nags at him, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. I kind of think that maybe we have some potential for her kind of starting to get a little bit more comfortable with the situation. But I just don't know, Dragon. A lot of damage was done with her character in the first
well,
season. I
that's
don't know
the
if we
that
can
see that's
recover
what I'm
from
getting
that.
at. It feels like Kirkman's a smart guy. It feels like he's going to look at that and say, "Yeah, we may have dropped the ball on that, so we're going to course correct that in season 2." Optimistically, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we're maybe trying to right the ship there with Amber. But if we do that, here's the problem, though. Um, if we make Amber too likable and too like we're
Uh-huh.
never going to get this kid with Adam Eve, which we kind of need to
Oh, you're
do.
right. That is the problem. Yeah.
So it's like even if they fix it, we're gonna have another problem on the horizon there. So that's the thing. It was always BS. Like, admittedly, it's BS how they get back together at the end of that first season. But we did seemingly, at least so far, we've seemingly fixed her.
I'm not going to go as far as to say we fixed her. She just
I
didn't do
said
anything that was
seemingly.
outwardly annoying yet.
I said seemingly. I mean, it'll look really bad if like they just repeat the same mistakes of like the first season with Amber. It's like, guys, come on, we made so much progress.
It'd be interesting if it was Mark that started to drift away from her and not the other way around.
Well, that's the thing. Right now, he's essentially working full time with Cecil. So surely that would. The other thing, Cecil's saying like, "Hey, don't rush back to the fold. Like, spend time with a girlfriend. Like you finish school. Like that. Be there for your mom. Do all
Yeah, no,
these
I mean,
things."
you got to think that with the girlfriend thing, that's just not really high on his priority list right now, which could definitely come back to bite him.
Well, there you go. Yeah. And that's the thing. Adam and Eve's always going to have that advantage where she gets it. She's there with them in the trenches. Where Amber does. And think of it. Here's a sign. Here's a little subtle thing I did notice. He has a scene with Amber, and then later he has a scene with Adam Eve, and that makes him proactive. Where she says, like, essentially that gives him the push of like, okay, Cecil, let's cut a deal. I'm gonna do
Uh-huh.
everything you say. Just put me in, coach.
Sure, sure.
All right. So speaking of which, let's see. So Angstrom Levy. So Sterling K. Brown. He's the shorthand is he's better Kang.
Essentially, yes.
It does very much. Look, but the production schedule on these things, I can't really wager a guess because I don't think anyone knows what's going on now on the side of the MCU right now. Let's just say, coincidentally, it feels like Kirkman's like telling the MCU, "Hold my beer. This is how we're going to approach Kang in the multiverse. This is how we do it."
I do feel like after one episode, I feel like this guy's got more of a presence.
Right?
Like for me with Kang, it's like my favorite interpretation of him is the Victor Timely stuff that
Mm-hmm.
we've gotten, but even still, that's very much kind of like a an origin point for the character. I really don't feel like they've nailed him down quite yet, and then obviously the Jonathan Majors situation on top of all that. So
Okay, so I'm going to trade you a Jonathan Majors for a brand new Sterling K. Brown.
I think that's a really good trade-off, Trey. I'm not gonna lie, Sterling K. Brown might be a good fit for if they do need to replace Jonathan Majors.
Well, I mean, it's like they really can't do it because we've had Sterling K. Brown and Black Panther. So
Oh, you're right. You're right.
But yes, giving like a rewind on that front, but no, but seriously, I mean, doesn't it feel like so far the Angstrom Levy character is fascinating because he starts off, he's all peace and smiles. When he's making his deal with the Mauler, saying, "Look, I'm a pacifist, guys. I will leverage you and stranding you here because you are bad people. I'm already in an ethical conundrum making a deal with you guys. I won't hurt you. I won't do anything, but I will just leave you here." So this guy's a fascinating character, but I love there's like a twinge of like he says he's going to copy the memories of his other selves from all the multiverses that he's kind of gathered into the room, but none of them have the portal ability. And he's gonna basically he just wants all the information. I love the Mauler's point of like, well, you could just talk to him, right? Well, no, he wanted it all there instantly.
Uh-huh.
So there is the impression he just says copy. We don't know if that means copy and maybe it zaps the originals away and maybe kills them all off, but they're all me, so it's kind of like a form of like suicide except for the last guy. It's a little unclear. It doesn't look like that's a procedure that tickles, But he said copy though, so I don't think he was trying to kill them all. So it doesn't sound like this guy is trying to hurt anyone. Period, even himself. But yeah, I love how that whole
it's a pretty horrific, like, if we're gonna have a villain origin story, though, what happens to him at the end of the episode is pretty justified for him to be pretty pissed.
Yeah. So let's see. We had a little before we get back to like the big payoff to the Angstrom stuff. The Guardians of the Globe. We check in with those guys. We have the 8-year-old giant monster, which is kind of funny. Rudy, robot, formerly Zachary Quinto. He is playing. He's now the human Rudy body, and he's dealing with his humanity, and that gets him replaced on the team as leader.
Mm-hmm.
With Abraham Lincoln. No, I'm just kidding. The Immortal. Also, we introduced Tiki. What do you think of Bulletproof so far?
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really get that strong of an impression on him either way. I mean, he seems fine. I do like that he has he's kind of like the version of Rexplode that kind of puts his money where his mouth is, where it's like he's actually got the skills to back up the cocky attitude. So I don't know. It should be a good flavor to add to the team.
I want to. Here's the main reason I asked Tiki, because there's this great joke with Bulletproof. I wonder if you caught it. Did his costume seem familiar to you?
I'd have to go back and look. I can't say.
Okay, well here's the gag. In the first, we saw this in the first season. It's in the comic as well. As when Invincible is trying to get when the Mark Hamill character is making Invincible's costume. Art, I believe the character's name's Art.
Uh-huh.
Art's making the costume. He initially tries to sell him on the pre-made like proto version of the Invincible suit. And Invincible says, I'm looking for something a little more iconic. And he's like, I know, he's just basically salesmanship. He's trying to push the unwanted merch on him before he does. So the idea is that Bulletproof took that suit. That's what he's wearing.
Yeah, no, I totally missed that, but that is a funny little tie-in.
So I wonder if at some point if he's going to have an actual scene with Invincible, if he's going to bring that up or not. And also he has a name that's very derivative of Invincible, Bulletproof Invincible. So that's the gag. This guy's kind of like.
Speaking of the name Dragon, I love the running gag in this episode where they keep like teeing up the whole Invincible thing. You know what I mean? You do it like 3 or 4 times.
His thing, but in the first season, it was just the gag throughout the whole season. Wherever we would say the name for the first time, it was like, "What do you think I am?" And then it was cut to Invincible.
Right. And so it's like in this episode, I feel like they're really playing around with like the audience expectation, because it's like 3 or 4 times we have that setup, and there is like an intentional pause and everything. So
yeah, like at the beginning,
that was some really fun like meta humor right there.
Like when he's on the screen at the top, he says, "Remember, I think we're all in bated breath waiting for that blood spatter on the logo." It's like, nope. It's like, oh god, he said his name. He's saying his name all throughout. What is wrong? The record's skipping. Stop the trolley. I want to get off.
Right.
But it's interesting though when we do it at the very end. I wonder if we're going to keep it going here, where it's the whole thing went black except for the red text because we've gone completely blood spattered, and
Yeah, yeah.
there was a crack. I don't know if you noticed, there was a crack in the foundation. I wonder if we're gonna like just keep chipping away at it now.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
So
interesting.
that's the thing we got to keep track of. So keep an eye on that as we go forward. We're just keep cracking the foundation of the title. But yeah, so let's see. So I here's something I'm wondering if we're going to address like the whole Monster Girl thing because remember, her power has a terrifying thing where the more she uses her monster transforming ability, she becomes younger and younger.
Right, right.
So I wonder because the whole
Like,
half
I'm
the
not gonna lie, the Monster Girl and robot stuff is probably my least favorite stuff in the whole series. It's just there's some really I don't know. There's some tricky implications there.
well, I mean, he's a robot though, Tiki.
Yeah, I get that, but it's
I mean, he's
kind of
aged
feels
to
like
be a
they're intentionally playing with fire a little bit.
well. I guess my point is, I wonder if they're gonna like kind of mess with the that so they can age him up to something a little bit more appropriate or not. I wonder if we're gonna like acknowledge okay, maybe she won't get younger with each transformation, which is gonna become more problematic.
Right, right.
I don't know. We'll see on that front. Let's see. So yeah, okay. Okay, Invincible's called and he's back in the game. He's fighting the multiverse of Maulers. By the way, how I think the funniest moment of this whole episode for me, well, there's two really funny ones. One, Rexplode does have that really great gag, like calling out the Immortals' entrance. Very Deadpool, like I got to admit, just saying, like, "You were waiting, weren't you? You were waiting to to enter right when he said that."
uh-huh.
Okay, but seriously, I think the funniest gag of the episode is when Invincible shows up and then Cecil on the earpiece. It says, okay, kid, spit it out. Okay, I see a giant mechanical Christmas tree, the same guy on all the branches, portals, and the Maulers. Just as it's like the weirdest shopping list. I love it.
Right, right.
So that's great. We have the situation that we've been building up here. It's like like it's kind of the cross and the nexus between our 2 points. And interestingly, Invincible never fought the Maulers before. This is the first time he's fought the Maulers.
That yeah, no, that's a good point. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, because Omni Man kind of fought the Maulers briefly, but that's about as
Sure,
close as we
sure.
ever got that. So yeah, he's fighting the Maulers, and it's interesting. And this is going to be something to track. We have diametrically opposite approaches here. To think about it, Angstrom's whole approach here is the opposite of Viltrum, where he doesn't want to fight anyone. And his peaceful approach lands him a brain deformity. Versus like Viltrum, which would be like, we're going to show up and we're going to conquer that way. If you want to look at kind of like the two versions of a Kang the Conqueror of sorts here, where it's like, okay, I'm just going to learn all the information, just kind of share this knowledge to the world and build a utopia. He's building a utopia versus the Viltrumites who are invading to build and through violence are building a utopia.
Uh-huh.
Kind of basically colonizing planets to build utopias across the globe, but they expand their empire. But so I thought that was interesting. So the thing to track though is Mark wanted to assess the situation more, and Cecil just kind of nipped that in the bud. And Cecil's not wrong in that. Well, they did bring this on themselves, but still, Mark does feel bad about this, and he feels he could have saved all the
Well, I mean,
Angstroms.
yeah, I mean, we do have just like tons of different variants of these two characters, like technically three characters. Just dead before Mark's eyes. It is very much it is a good way to kind of confront Mark with that PTSD of the train incident for sure.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Now, every time people die around him, he's experiencing that firsthand. It's not that he's had not been around death before, but like he was on the precipice of death in the beginning of season one. By the end of season one, he was just surrounded by it, and he was very traumatized by it.
Right.
Plus, they have that really scary bit too, where everyone like is given how invincible. And again, we did that thing again where Rex Floyd's like saying "invincible." You really are.
Yeah.
Now when he said that was like a deliberate pause. At that point in the episode, like okay, we're just messing with the audience.
Exactly.
But yeah, so just the fact that everyone was like firebombed essentially, but him. It's almost like Logan in the Wolverine.
Uh-huh.
I know you haven't seen that, but just trust me, it's a really good bit that's kind of akin to that. Anyway, so but yeah, he's feeling some guilt, and Cecil again. That's what I'm talking about. Cecil does like the kid. He's trying to assuage him. Like, this is what happens when you follow my orders. He doesn't just get out of there. We'll do cleanup duty on it. Like, you get your head straight. I don't know. It's just something nice about that.
Sure.
All right, so but again, that might come to a head though. That maybe Cecil's going to make some calls that Mark's really going to disagree with. That he knows he could have, that he could have gone about a different way. But yeah, Angstrom though, Angstrom saved his bacon. He took that helmet off too because my utopia will not be built on blood. It's a good line.
Uh-huh.
It's a good line. And Tiki, what is the horrific aftermath of this action?
I mean, just like Jesus Christ, just like his brain basically like swells to the size of like Krang from Ninja Turtles, but it's still inside his skull.
Imagine a mullet, like the longest mullet you've ever seen, and then basically have it be brain matter, and then have that brain matter like under the skin. So it's like if you tuck the mullet into the skin, and it's like a giant like a rock star mane of hair that is brain.
Yeah, I mean, that is some pretty intense body horror, Dragon. I'm not gonna lie.
Here's the thing, Tiki. Okay, so here's the thing. The moment at the end when I saw this character, I was wondering. I think I've seen this guy. I don't know if he's who I'm thinking of or not. But when I saw this final form here, it's like, yeah, that's the guy from the comic, all right. I forgot completely how we made him. I don't even know if we made him like this in the comic for his origin, but he. Yeah, that's him, and that's realizing, man, that's no wonder that guy's so ticked off Invincible in the comic. Look what happened to him. But Tiki, here's the fascinating thing I love most about this character. Okay, and this is the brilliant part of storytelling. So even though we didn't quite get like a big I'm the man like reveal, I really was like it was a tip of the hat, tip of the brain hat, I guess. Story moment here where we realize that the brain that the memories that that are inhabiting his mind because now he had all those different multiverses.
Exactly. Like he has like there's no concept for him of Invincible as someone who is anything but a monster at this point in his mind.
Like right now, he's ticked off of the situation, but he's not thinking rationally. And what's not helping is that the main memories he's pulling from right now are the guy from the opening, where he's thinking Invincible killed his family and everything, killed everyone he ever loved. So that's fascinating to me. And like what's even better, Tiki, is that we kind of set this up in the first season with the Molars, and the Molars had the whole thing of robots saying, the whole clone running gag of like, he's my clone. We don't know who's the real one because, if you're going to have two consciousness, the whole idea of like the multiple consciousness thing. So this guy's kind of living that, and that's what's setting him down the wrong path. So I thought that was genius. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good way to kind of set the stage for him.
Yep, it also goes very full circle to where we started and where we ended the episode with that character.
Sure. Yep. All right, Richard's Victims, I don't think he's here anymore, but he just asks what episode did they bring Omni-Man back? And we discussed it a little bit, but Dragon, I'm kind of with you. I think, if I had to guess, I think every episode I would guess we're at least going to get a little taste of him, whether it be like a flashback or a dream sequence or PTSD or what have you. But I think I would bet pretty good money on him making his reappearance into the story proper at the end of episode 4.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, Dragon? We never touched on adult Bobby Hill. Just want to acknowledge that adult Bobby Hill.
A lot of people are wondering because you remember he got killed in the first season. A lot of people are wondering how he's back.
He's probably a clone. That was pretty much my guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's the thing. I forget if somewhere I read maybe robot. I don't know if I forget if he's in the comics. He might have been a robot, but he had blood though when Omni-Man crushed his. However, I think they probably went the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. route, where I know not immediately in the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but eventually, like a lot of people speculate, we did make Coulson a robot.
Oh God! Oh no!
So
I don't even want to know.
Look, don't get it. Tiki, it's convoluted, but it's not bad. All right, it's not. It's anyway. The point being, a lot of people speculate from the very beginning they're just going to come back as a robot. So they eventually kind of did. So it's not as bad as it might sound. Anyway, point being, it'd be a logical kind of comics pool. Like, okay, so the real guy probably died, and that's what we saw in the first season. So yeah, we like him. We're going to bring him back as a robot. Yep. So there's adult
Fair
Bobby
enough.
Hill, the robot.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where it goes from here, and it might not have the same kind of slap in your face impact as the end of the first episode of season 1, but it's still very much a good tone setter. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
All right. Is that about it?
I think so.
Okay. Big thanks to Richard's Victims. We will be back every week covering this until, of course, like I don't know, Dragon. I am slightly annoyed that we're only getting 4 episodes and then we're going on hiatus again, considering how long we waited. But we'll take what we can get, I guess.
I mean, look how impressive this and the Adam Eve thing was, though,
Sure,
man.
sure.
I mean, it's taken time.
Animation takes time, kids.
Plus, we're getting dense story here.
And I still need to catch up on Gen V. So
yeah, you got time.
Yeah, honestly, maybe I might just make Gen V the thing like that's kind of like in between Invincible parts 1 and 2, if I'm being honest.
All right.
All right, folks. Big thanks to Richard's Victims in the comments, and see y'all later. Have a good